Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. We've got an awesome guest today, Ricardo Gequiere from Belgian company Upthrust. And this is an exciting episode that will be about paid social media and especially LinkedIn for B2B companies. So paid LinkedIn for B2B companies. What's up, Ricardo? How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Awesome. I'm really glad how you pronounce my name. It's getting really close to
Oh,
where
is
most
that
people
right?
get it, I would say.
Okay, well, let's try that again. The first question is to introduce yourself anyway, so you can smooth out that little bump in my pronunciation.
Yeah, no worries. Like I hear everything nowadays, but my last name just sucks. Like I always say, don't even start pronouncing my last name. It doesn't make sense anyways.
Keep it to Ricardo then.
Yeah, let's just stick to Ricardo. I think that's gonna be the easiest for today. No, in short, I work for a company called Uptrust. Uptrust, I think my agency got bought about 2 years ago by Uptrust. We were back then about 11. Now we're about 70, growing a little bit more stronger. I think we're gonna hit the 80 to 90 this year. That has been an interesting journey over the last 2 years. And yeah, I'm mostly responsible for everything that has to do with paid social. So if we need to talk about LinkedIn ads, I think I should be able to say a thing or two.
Yeah. Okay. First things first. How did you get into LinkedIn marketing?
I would say I rolled into it because my career started when in Facebook ads. I think just Facebook ads is easier to roll in because it's cheaper. The cost per clicks are cheaper. The results, it's quite easy to test. You can start with €5 budget. With LinkedIn, if you have €5, you get one click. Not a lot of things you're gonna get to do. So I started up in Facebook ads, and then I rolled into what is LinkedIn content marketing. I think together with Andre Zinkovic, we did a lot around social selling. Posting on LinkedIn, doing outbound campaigns. Posting some content on LinkedIn. And from there, we started realizing how the algorithm works, how the engagement works, how to trick the algorithm. So I really had some fun there. And then suddenly I realized, well, actually, if you want to grow on LinkedIn, there's actually only three ways. I call it the three-sided marketing strategy on LinkedIn. And there's one is where you post content, so your audience sees it. But of course, if you want your audience to see it, you need to connect with them. Otherwise, nobody gets to see it. So that's what we call the outbound campaign. So you connect with the people, so you have an audience. You post it, so that's the second way. So you have outbound, inbound, and on top of that, of course, you have the last strategy, which is the LinkedIn ads. The other way to get in front of the right people is LinkedIn ads. So I realized I mastered these two. I need to get into LinkedIn ads, and I realized, well, it's pretty much if you want to set it up, it's the same thing as Facebook ads.
Very
Copies
close.
everything. They just
Facebook ads 5 years ago or something.
yeah, it's always lagging behind. Basically, it's like if you look at Facebook ads 5 years ago, the ad manager is just exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But then when you want to get the same results as Facebook, you realize, oh, this is a very different channel. Like if I'm going to spend €5 per click, yeah.
Here's the thing, Ricardo, is LinkedIn ads for everybody that's a B2B company and selling to people who are on LinkedIn? Would you recommend that everybody should go into LinkedIn ads who has an audience on LinkedIn, or is it not for everybody?
I think there's two answers to that. So first of all, LinkedIn ads is definitely not for everybody. So that's the first mistake I see. Everybody thinks their audience is on LinkedIn, and it's not because your audience is on LinkedIn that it makes sense to start running LinkedIn ads. And this is, I think, where it has nothing to do with the channel. It just has to do from a business perspective. So what I always recommend, if your company is not selling something which has more than a customer lifetime value about 10 to 15K, it just doesn't make sense. Because if you're spending €5 a click to get in front of somebody, and you're selling something like a software, which is €5, €7, €8, like you're never going to be profitable. Like even just making that equation just doesn't make sense. So from that perspective, if you're not selling something which is worth more than 10 to 15K in customer lifetime value, and most sales companies don't even know their customer lifetime value, so it's always a tricky one. If you're not selling that, I would even say just do something else. Don't even get into LinkedIn ads.
Got it. Okay, so like that's the only criteria you would have other than your audience being on LinkedIn is to have a high ACV of about 10 to 15K a year.
That's definitely the first. So get a high ACV. And then the second one is that sometimes in software businesses, so you have, some companies, they start from a enterprise version. So they have an enterprise version, they sell that, and then they say, okay, now that we have this covered, let's move down the market. So their ACV drops basically. Or companies that start with low ACV, so they have like a marketing automation, which is sell for 10 euros, and then suddenly they want to upscale and they want to sell to enterprise. So sometimes you do have both, basically, where you have customers with low ACV, but also customers with high ACV. So I would definitely look into, okay, your company, if it's selling low ACV, that's fine, but you also need to be selling something with high ACV. So that's where I put the segmentation on it. So
yeah, we're going to get to that a bit later, definitely.
Yeah. If you're going after companies where you want to get into, basically, then it kind of starts making sense for LinkedIn ads, where your ACV is still plus 15. If you're going to the lower segment, you're just going to burn money in. You're never going to be profitable anyways.
Right. Okay. Since in the beginning you said that LinkedIn or marketing on LinkedIn is sort of like a three-legged stool, I'm guessing that besides LinkedIn ads, you'll want to have an organic presence. Is that just the recommended setup, or would you recommend LinkedIn ads as a shortcut? So not doing any organic, just jumping into ads and paid and getting in front of your audience. Is that possible or advisable?
Yeah, I think there's three-sided, right? You have ads, you have outbound, so me sending you a request and a messaging, and then you basically have inbound, which is content production, right? So all of them have different kinds of, I would say, scale and also speed, I would say. So basically, if I would want to, launch ads tomorrow, I could, I just do something. I have my, whatever it is, an ebook, a calculator, some blog posts, whatever, what I want to promote. It's me doing this. So if you get into B2B companies, you're mostly working also with a sales department, and inside the ads department, you mostly are running it from a marketing perspective. So ads is really mostly marketing driven, not sales driven. Of course, you connect with your sales, and the segmentation needs to get back to sales, but it's less input from sales basically. Whereas if, for example, if you would run an outbound campaign, it just doesn't make sense to send from a marketeer to a CEO basically, because you're not going to be able to have this sales conversations with your prospects. So it needs to be from the sales perspective or a salesperson all the way to another person. So this is where you have to involve your sales teams again. So it takes a little bit more time in order to get it up and running. Same thing with inbound. You have to, write content. You have to involve your sales team. So it's also, again, sales and marketing driven. So it takes a little bit more time. And also, of course, the scale is a little bit less. I mean, I can post one times a week. Then I can do 2, then I can do 3. But then if you start posting like every single day, it just gets really tiring. So it's scalable, and also it's limited. I mean, it's going to take time. If you're going to start posting today, you're not going to see any results. It's going to take up to 5 to 6 months in order to really get, where you want to go. With LinkedIn ads, you launch something today, you get feedback immediately. You have your feedback, this is going to work, this is not going to work. Basically.
Exactly. Okay. Do you have any inspiring examples with clients who, from the B2B SaaS realm, who you worked with and they saw some nice results, and just how long it took?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a few examples. So one time I was working for a company called Albacross. So Albacross is basically an IP identifier services. So in non-Chinese words, that means that if you would visit my website and based on the IP address you're sitting on, I would be able to say, hey, this is not Dan, but this is the company you're working for, and I know you visited my website. So I have to admit, when I thought about this, I was a little drunk. I still remember, because I was in a coffee bar in Antwerp. I was thinking about this, and I started realizing something, that if they know exactly which company that visited the website, right? And on the website, there's a LinkedIn pixel. So I figured, okay, that's interesting. What if I would set up a retargeting campaign, a LinkedIn in-mail targeting campaign? So meaning that you get a message in your inbox saying, hey, I noticed that you visited our website, because, we don't really know who it is, but LinkedIn does.
Yeah.
They know you visited the website, right? So I contacted the SDR at Albacross, said, look, I want to try something fun, basically. And the fun stuff is like, okay, you know what? We're going to launch a campaign, and we're just going to retarget everybody that has visited particular pages, basically. So the homepage, the pricing page, and we're going to say, hey, we noticed that you visited the website, but you forgot to say hi, which is also the title which we used, which was you forgot to say hi. Because basically that's what they did. Like you come to the website, you just don't say hi, you just bounce away again. So we made a fun campaign around, hey, you know what? You forgot to say hi. And then he introduces himself and says basically, hey, with our software, you can basically identify who is visiting the website, which is basically the same thing we did with the ads, basically.
That is awesome. Okay, let's just pause right here and recap. Okay, so the campaign was this. You placed a LinkedIn retargeting pixel on the website. You drove traffic to the website of your client. And for everybody who got pixeled, so to say, by the LinkedIn pixel, you sent a retargeting campaign, that's an in-mail campaign, right to your LinkedIn inbox.
Yes.
And in that LinkedIn campaign, that direct in-mail campaign, you got some funky creative stuff going.
Yeah, exactly. And basically saying, hey, you forgot to say hi. So, you know, and the fun stuff is like it got picked up because there were some people, you know, getting these inboxes and it got shared on social media. So I think that's also like, apart from metrics, like how many, you know, conversions and all that stuff. I mean, social media is also about, you know, getting some fun out of it and driving some conversions, but also at the same time making some fun at the same time. I think all of those are always the best campaigns.
True. Are you allowed to share some numbers, or can you share numbers which you're allowed to share and some that you're not allowed to share?
So we do have a case study. So if you go to uptrust.eu, you'll find a case study around what we've done for LinkedIn ads. You'll see that for a client of which is called SD Works. They do payrolling software. It's a campaign that was led by me and they also other team members. So this is basically where you can exactly see what kind of campaigns we did, what the process was, exactly how we did it. So I think it's going to take a long time because it's a 1 hour slide. But you can basically see the full breakdown of the campaigns we did, how we did it, what the setup was. So I think that's the best case where you could, I'll share it afterwards if you like.
We are linking this to the show notes and the blog post and the whatnot. So you're going to get the link directly. Great resource. Okay. What's your take on targeting people on LinkedIn and then retargeting them on Facebook because it's cheaper? Do you ever do that?
I mean, we've done a lot of this fun stuff, I would say, where even to the point where we would run Google ads basically, and then we would pass a UTM parameter with it and say, okay, all these people with this parameter, we want to retarget on Facebook with a specific audience and a specific message. So we've done all the, you know, hacky fun stuff, all that stuff. So I think it to a certain extent, it makes sense. But I always put it this way, right? It's the same structure if you would run Facebook campaigns where you would say, let's do a video campaign, basically, where we would say, we just want to have video views. And then we retarget all the people that visit, you know, watch the video, and then we retarget them because they showed interest in this. And what we noticed there in Facebook as well is that if we just go straight for the kill, which would basically say, just download this ebook or book a call, whatever it is, it's cheaper compared to running a two-sided funnel, basically, which is the video funnel and then the retargeting, because you have to show your video ad to a lot of not interesting people, and then you retarget to a very small segment. And retargeting always costs a lot of money because retargeting, you'll see this with LinkedIn. If you're doing retargeting campaigns, it will go up to 100 euros CPM, which on the average, just for people to know, Facebook is about 5. Retargeting could be up to 10, maybe a little 15. So
I totally noticed this on Facebook, by the way, that it's not like everybody's like so big on retargeting, but a lot of times I would just, you know, go for the lead straight out of the gate in a Facebook ad.
Exactly.
And then the targeting would be like, ouch.
Yeah, you're having 2 campaigns and you're paying for those 2 campaigns, basically. So if you put them together and you look at your average cost per lead with those 2 together, you're actually losing compared to just going straight for the kill, as we would like to call it. I'm actually not a big fan of it because of that, that structure, because you're still paying a lot of to LinkedIn, and then you have to retarget them up. And if you put down the cost together, it just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, how should people start thinking about and plan a paid advertising presence on LinkedIn?
Great question. What I've noticed is that this is not just LinkedIn, by the way. This is Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is. So just going from a strategic point of view. So what I've noticed is that most people consider the same strategy for Google Ads or Bing Ads and they just try to replicate that into LinkedIn basically. So, and that's, I think, the first mistake people make when diving into the channel. They try to confuse an intent channel versus a non-intent channel, because on Google, a certain intent. You're interested in shoes, you're interested in buying a certain software. So there's an intent there. If you go to G2 Crowds for software businesses, or you go to Capterra, you have a certain intent to purchase something. You're matching, you're looking at what solutions are out there. If you go to LinkedIn, there is these people are completely not interested in what you are trying to sell. It's what we call a pull channel, as we would like to call it in old school marketing. It's basically you're trying to create demand on LinkedIn. You're not capturing demand. So it's a very different philosophy. It's a very different way of approaching the channel. And this is what we notice for most people that come into LinkedIn ads. They don't have the right content to start on LinkedIn ads. They have a lot of content around how awesome their product is. And, we have this page, right? And they all come to me. We have this page. It's called the Book a Demo page. This is amazing, because if they would book a demo with us, man, they would get such value. And they forget something. It's like, no. You're going to get a lot of value. They're not going to get a lot of value.
Okay, so, super important. Sorry, let me just pause again, because that was gold. Okay, so LinkedIn is the very top of funnel channel where the intent isn't quite there yet. All the, especially search, but many other forms of PPC advertising need non-intent content, which is basically all about education and very little about transaction. So it's about framing people's minds. It's about getting them interested.
Exactly. It's about generating that demand. It's really about, if you have people looking for your kind of software, what the hell are you doing on LinkedIn? Move away. There's no point of going into LinkedIn, because people are already looking for your solution. Go spend your money there. I always say, if Google Ads is running fine for you and you have your demand and you can spend more in the channel. Go ahead. You don't need LinkedIn ads for that. You first conquer the intent channels and then you move up the funnel. It's like if you would have to sell to me, who's looking for a software solution X, or you would have to sell to you, which has no idea about has no problem at all. You would want to target me, not the other person. So this is a little bit the same thing. Let's say I have an intent to buy something. Go spend some more money on me, not on Dan, basically. So LinkedIn is a little bit the same. If you expect that you're going to sell a software of 15K by running some campaigns about book a demo because our software is awesome, you're going to have shit out of luck, because it's never going to happen. I've never seen a successful book a demo campaign in my entire life.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Or even Facebook, basically. And then again, on Facebook, yes, but then you're going to get smaller fishes, right? So you're going to get some 2 employees companies, 5 employees company, which is fine. But if you're going for the bigger fishes, which they have multiple decision-making processes, you have multiple ICPs, you have, budgets that need to be cleared. There's going to be so much stuff that goes around that if you're going to launch a campaign saying, hey, we have this awesome software and you should book a demo right now because that's going to be an amazing journey for you, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no intent. There's no point of you doing that at this perspective. Unless you're selling water in the Sahara and your solution needs to be solved right now, you're going to be shit out of luck.
Yeah, exactly. And also keep in mind that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much a lead costs or how much even a book demo costs. What matters is how many of them and what your cost per conversion is for a sales qualified opportunity. Because you can get a crap ton of leads on any channel, basically, to book a demo for you or to sign up for a conversation or a discovery call or whatever. But a lot of times it's just going to be wasting your SDR's time. So right metric, and I'm sure you talk about this with clients because I know you have KPI meetings, and so you get them ready on what sort of KPIs to be tracking and what to be looking at and what matters and what doesn't. So I guess you get people ready about this as well. So you need to be tracking at cost per sales qualified opportunity or something similar, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of KPIs, but at the end of the row, you have to understand that it's like a demand generation channel. It's not something that if you're expecting, if you're going to launch a campaign around, say, book a demo because our sales reps are waiting for you to be called, you're going to have a big time. So most of our job is basically, at least as consultants, is just to set the standards, right? It's like, okay, but what can you expect? Because if you're going to expect 15 demo calls and us launching those campaigns, like we even like sometimes are obliged to launch those campaigns to prove that it's not going to work. So that's even the next level. Some people just have too much money in this world. I have no idea why they want to do that. But like, it's not going to work because it's non-intent channels. So for you on LinkedIn, for me, it's really the goal is to educate. And you're basically going to LinkedIn most of the time to connect. So to connect with other people and get expertise, basically understand what is working in the world, what is not working. I mean, that's why you open your LinkedIn app, just to get some highlights of the day. It's like Twitter, but then with a little bit longer form stories where you're trying to connect, but also learn a thing or two. And that's, I think, what you need to use the channel for. You have to, and I always love the example or the quote that Brian Belfer of Reforge says, the VP or ex-VP of marketing of HubSpot, is basically your product cannot adapt to the channel. Your channel will never adapt, but you can adapt your product to the channel, basically. So meaning that you cannot change how LinkedIn is working. Like you don't control the algorithm, you don't control what the behavior is on the channel, you don't control what people are looking for on the channel. So you need to adapt how people are in that particular mindset, basically. So your content needs to fit within the channel and not the other way around. It's not because you want a lot of demos booked that people are sitting on the platform to book a demo, basically.
Before I ask you, Ricardo, what your take is on TikTok for B2B, I'm going to ask you that later. But I want to pick your brain on account-based marketing place for LinkedIn ads. And I know you're doing some exciting stuff around that. So how is any of what we've discussed different when you are targeting like really big fish and in an account-based scenario?
Cool. Yeah, sure. So this is where we mostly come in with a one-to-one and one-to-many approach. So the one-to-one approach is basically when we set up an ABM strategy, we have two roads, basically. The one-to-one approach is where we ask the sales we challenge the sales, I would say, at the same time. It's like, okay, which accounts would you like to get in? What's your best account you would like to get in? And then also put that into a realistic perspective, because most sales will say, HubSpot, for example, I don't know, it's a big company. And they're like, we ask him why. It's like, yeah, it's a big company. They have a lot of money, so they should definitely be able to afford this. That's not a criteria, basically. So apart from challenging the criteria to come to the right, market segment, or at least a target list that they want to get to, this is where we say, okay, let's pick 1 to 3 accounts and let's just run what we call a POC, proof of concept, where we say, okay, these 3 accounts we want to target. And then we have what we call the one-to-many approach. So the one-to-many approach is basically saying, okay, so based on these 3, people or companies that you mentioned, which are like similar companies which you would want to target, basically. So companies you may not be thinking about because you did some research, but you actually haven't found them. So we try to look at similarities and say, okay, these are the top 3 accounts, but probably these companies could also afford your software. So let's also go after these. And the reason why I'm saying this is because in Facebook, you can retarget people from one user, basically. So if you have 5, 6 people visiting your landing page, you could pretty much set up a retargeting campaign. LinkedIn, you need a minimum of 300 people. So that's the barrier, right? So if you're going to set up a campaign on LinkedIn and you're going to target an account and it doesn't have more than 300 people you want to target within the account, just doesn't really make sense to launch LinkedIn ads. So that's a little bit the philosophy we always try to find. So it's like, in an ABM, in an ideal world, yes, you want to target this specific person within a specific company. But if your target audience is not bigger than 300 people, like the campaign is never going to run. Yeah. And even if it runs, it's going to be so expensive that it might not even be worth doing. So this is why we launch one-to-many and one-to-one campaigns. One-to-one, we go
campaigns so that you get the minimum audience size that's required for LinkedIn.
Exactly. So we combine them, basically. We say, okay, within the big many fishes that you want to catch, let's also add these 3 companies, basically, because they're also relevant for this type of content, but we still need a minimum requirement to also make sure that the campaigns run. That's why we launch them at the same time. And while we launch them at the same time, we have the one-to-one approach, which is mostly not with ads, but it's mostly with email or LinkedIn emails or whatever you want to call it. But it's a really one-to-one approach where the segmentation, the messaging is very tailored to that specific person.
Yes. And I know people are asking right now, okay, but so your one-to-one campaign is really not a one-to-one campaign. So you can't customize, you can't personalize the creative as much. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, good luck for you. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna change the platform, like I said before. Like, you should adapt to the platform, not the platform to you, basically. So, I mean, it's fun for you to think and wish that you could do this, but it's not possible. So you adapt your strategies within the channel, and that's why we say the one-to-one and the one-to-many. That's why we come up with this, because we just noticed it's not technically possible. So yes, you could do this and you could set up a campaign to just target that specific company. But first of all, it's going to be super expensive. Like having just company lists inside your ads is just crazy expensive. Like, of course, it's a higher deal value, but still, like, it's not really always worth it. So that's why we suggest to put it together. And while you're running these campaigns, you need to have your one-to-one approach where you have different playbooks. For example, a playbook we're working on right now is a roundtable playbook, where we basically say, okay, you know what? These are the target accounts you want to get in. Cool, let's do a roundtable together. Let's do a roundtable with 2, 3 of these, people that you want to sit around the table. Let's invite 2 more leads that are in the pipeline because of the one-to-many campaign. And let's put them together and brainstorm about, some relevant topic. I mean, we did it together in Prague. We talked about ABM. Do the same thing, but for a niche audience that you want to target to. So this is where you run different playbooks than just LinkedIn ads.
Awesome. Okay, and to hack around this audience size issue, would you recommend an approach that actually just came into mind? It's not a very elegant approach, but it still might work. So let's say you have a dream account and you want to create a totally personalized, like 100% personalized ad, like calling out the company name. Let's say I want to target you at Uptrust. I'm doing a creative that says, hello, Uptrust people, look at this content because this speaks to your specific problem at Uptrust. I target some people at Uptrust and it ends up being 5 people. So I need 295 more to get the minimum audience size. So what I do, without really damaging my brand, is I pull in some companies that are located, I don't know, in Bangladesh or in Eastern China that are like totally off and they're never going to learn about me. And they're also going to be put into this campaign and they're also going to get this message from me. They're not going to understand. Yeah, the downside is that they're totally not going to click and react. So the cost is going to be up, but at least I've got a personalized campaign for Uptrust and Uptrust people are going to see that campaign.
Yeah, I get your point. So it is, I mean, technically it's possible. And the fun stuff is that probably the other thing will happen. It's not that they won't click, they actually will click a lot. This is also a strategy we used in the past and still today, where we launched campaigns in Brazil or Pakistan or India, mostly these 3 countries, to get social proof on our ads, where we run them very cheap. And like we notice that these countries, even if they don't understand the content, they'll just like it and just engage like hell. It's crazy. So actually the opposite will happen, that a lot of people will engage even if they don't like the content, which is a very funny thing.
That will mess up your stats though, because
oh, completely. Completely. Yeah, your CTR is going through the roof, basically. So, I mean, technically speaking, so it is definitely possible. Always what I say is the warning I always give is that it's something that was done in the past, definitely. The only thing is that for some people, like we understand from marketing perspective that this is fun. But if an HR manager, because this was done for a company called Lego is a big company, and they were actually annoyed by it. So it can also backfire at the same time, because you thought it was a fun campaign, but actually just backfired. And that's what I always try to avoid as well. It's like, okay, you only have a few accounts. If you burn through them, you're just you're never going to get back, basically. So it's always a mix and twist. Like, do you want to burn yourself through this? Yes or no, basically.
Yeah, and it's always a good strategy on any platform or any medium, that if you try to hack the rules of the platform, like sooner or later, it's going to backfire no matter what, either in a small way or in a big way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Ricardo, like this is so awesome so far. I mean, I'm getting a very good introduction and a really good playbook for advertising on LinkedIn, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are also. One thing before I let you go, what's your view on some of the other platforms that B2B marketers are currently experimenting with? TikTok, Reddit, and whatnot. Have you guys been testing these platforms?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, we run a lot of ads. We run about, I think now it's going to be about 12 or maybe 10 million of ad spend. So we do spend a lot, or at least for a Belgian company, that's quite a lot. So yes, we did. So we did TikTok, we did Reddit.
Sorry, the context is B2B companies. So, okay, like for consumer, I know like TikTok is hot shit and so is Reddit, but for B2B SaaS, B2B technology.
Like, first of all, I think there's always two things, right? There is the technical around the platform, like the technicalities, like for example, the limitations of LinkedIn being a 300 audience size. And then you have like who's on the platform, like what is the mindset of the people on the platform, basically. So I would say first the technicalities. So for example, if you run ads on TikTok at this particular moment, there is nothing to attribute, basically. So if you would click away from TikTok and you land and you don't convert straight away, like you will never know how many sales you have. So there's an attribution window of 1 day, basically. So if people, for example, you're on a B2B company, you want to have a bunch of free trials coming in, just an example, like if they wouldn't have that free trial at that particular moment, which you mostly don't because you're on your phone, like TikTok is not something you watch, on a screen, or most of the time it's on your phone.
Yeah.
So even then, if you would launch ads on TikTok for a B2B company and you would have to do a free trial or anything related to that, like, first of all, you wouldn't know if they would convert, because if they don't convert straight away, it just doesn't make sense. And the second thing is that most free trials for a SaaS company or B2B SaaS companies are not made for mobile, basically. So any ads you run that you would convert, like nobody will convert on their mobile phone because most softwares are not there to be onboarded on your mobile phone, basically. So
okay, what about using TikTok as a pre-intent channel? So what we talked about with the case of LinkedIn. So also you don't want to have a transaction-based mindset on LinkedIn. And I think TikTok is the same.
Yeah, the thing is, like, what do you want to target for, right? Like, do you want to target people that like to dance? Like, it really depends. Like, if again your ACV is low, if you are selling, for example, let's say we have a client that sells invoices basically, and their packages start from €7 a month. So if you would want to target, for example, entrepreneurs basically that are on TikTok, yeah, okay, could do. Like, you could try it as a non-intent channel and go for it. But like if you're trying to, mostly B2B SaaS, mostly rational sides of the brain and not really the emotional side of the brain. That's mostly when you get into consumer goods. So if you're trying to bring that, like, it's definitely possible, but it's not like first channel I would choose. Like if I would be marketing manager and I would have a budget, I wouldn't want to spend my majority on the budget there. I would say, okay, 5%, let's put it into TikTok and do something there. Like, you will never be able to prove results anyways, but apart from that, like, you could definitely try it and have some fun. For example, we tried Reddit as well for a B2B SaaS company. They were selling systematic reviews, which is a technical thing. It's a software to run systematic reviews for PhD students and all that stuff. We did Reddit, we had some fun and all that stuff, but eventually, like, it doesn't lead up to the thing that you really want. So if you didn't exhaust your current channels, which are bringing in the good results, why invest into a new channel, basically? Because a new channel, I think most people don't realize that you don't just take your current content, you're like, okay, let's push it into this new channel. Like, every single channel is different. So in order to make it work, you need to invest not only from an ads perspective, but also your content needs to be adapted to the channel. Yeah. So that is already a huge investment up front. So I always, I'm the guy who thinks,
it's the tone of your message and everything else. So you'd have a totally different tone on LinkedIn than on Instagram or TikTok, for that matter. So it's not just changing the video dimensions and the image dimensions. It's more than
exactly. It's I mean, if you would come up with a video for dogs, basically, and then on LinkedIn, everybody's like, what the hell? This is not this channel. Like, you don't use that channel for it. Like, there was even some cat videos, basically, like people commenting like, I mean, go to Facebook, go to Instagram. Like, even people are realizing that, okay, this is not the channel for it. Use it somewhere else. So things that would work on LinkedIn, and we also saw that things that work on Facebook don't always work on LinkedIn. So you need to adapt the channel towards what it's meant to be, basically.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, one final question, the big meta question. Like, where do you see paid advertising, and especially PPC and social advertising, going for B2B brands? Do you see some trend that we're sitting on and that's coming in the future and people aren't aware yet?
So I think a few things, right? One, the whole attribution modeling is going to go into bananas, basically, with the whole cookie policies being demolished and all that stuff. So if you don't have past data to prove that the channel was actually a good fit for you, you're going to have a hard time trying to realize if it's going to be a good fit in the future. So if you don't have that past data to make assumptions in the future, because all the results are going to go waste. First of all, because people will not be able to attribute anything anymore. So that's already one thing. And the second thing is that more and more advertisers are getting into the channel, because technically speaking, anybody with a credit card and 16-year-olds, could basically run ads. So it's getting very easy to enter the game, but very hard to prove the results, basically. So proving results will become much harder. The channel is also only going to get more expensive. So that's already one thing. So there's a lot of trends happening there around that topic. So if you don't have past data to prove the future results, it's going to be a hard one, I would say.
Right.
So I think that's the first. Then I'll top of mind where I'm thinking about, I think GDPR is screwing up a lot of things. I think I spend like 30% of my time talking to GDPR people, or at least like data officers around cookie policies and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things happening around where you won't be able to prove certain results, and you'll need to trust your gut feeling a little bit more compared to having the data to back it up. I think that's going to be important. And then I think the second one is that AI is going to take over, basically. I feel like we also see this with Facebook, for example. We don't do targeting anymore. Like most of the things we don't target anymore. We just say, Facebook, choose, do something, basically. And the creativity is going to be the major impact that's driving your campaign. So that is not something AI mostly can do, not yet at least, is thinking about creative ways to set it up on the platform, because the platform is now choosing where to spend your money on. It's your role as a marketeer to be the creative guy and make sure you adapt the content with the creative hook, basically.
Have you been satisfied with the way the platform's AI is spending your money? Is it getting better and better, do you feel?
Way better. Yes, right. I would say yes. There's no way that in the future somebody like before you would have this, a lot of lookalikes and all that stuff, and you would try a lot of audiences and all that stuff, and that's still there. But eventually AI is going to take over. It's not like is it going to happen or not? It's just a matter of time, basically. Yeah. So it's for us to adapt into a new role. It's like accountants, basically. They used to say, okay, give me all your bills and I'm going to do this for you. But now you have software for that. So they had to adapt their roles into, okay, let's consult you on what to do. We're not going to do the ticketing system anymore. We're going to do the consulting and think about creative ways to help you out. Same thing is going to happen with marketing. Our role is going to be automated. So we need to think about how do we get on top of the game and make sure that creativity hits it.
Awesome. Ricardo, I got your first name right, I think.
Yeah, that's
way easier. Okay. Anything I didn't ask you that you still want to talk about and you think it's important for our audience and our friends?
Good question. I would always say if you have, I think a few takeaways for LinkedIn ads is that if you're going to test with 500 euros, don't even try it. It's just not worth it. You do need a heavy budget because it's a non-intent channel. So it's definitely something that you don't just test, basically. It's not just like you would have 1,000 euros and you test something on Facebook. It's not the channel for it. So really be specific and have a really good strategy moving in, basically. So if your strategy is, for example, okay, I want to target companies within a specific size because that's where I think the market is going to, and I think I can sell into that market, then that makes sense because you can have the targeting options in place, whereas you don't have another channel. So be really specific, learn. And I always say, if you want to get into a channel, learn what is possible and then reverse engineer what you're going to do. Don't just think about this beautiful creative and then you realize, oh, we cannot target more than 300 people or less than 300 people. Screw shit. So learn about the technicalities, what is possible. Have somebody tell you what is the possibilities, and then reverse engineer your strategy getting into it.
Yes. Ricardo, this has been awesome. I loved it. I do have a lot of questions and I could listen to you all day long, but I'm going to let you go now. Thank you so much for coming.
No worries, Dan. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.